In the scriptures, which we believe that are the closest to the Buddha's time, whether they're from the Buddha or whether they're written later or changed later, that for me is not so much important. They are the most historical we have. And in these scriptures, we learn that actually the Buddha accepts that there is a God who believes that he created the world. But he's wrong. So the God believes that he created the world, but the Buddha says the God is wrong. And there is a discourse, there is a sutta, we call these discourses, like a text, standalone text, Our teachings in Theravada Buddhism is divided into 84,000 pieces of teachings. So in one of these pieces, there is the story that the God who believes that he created the world, a thought occurred in his mind. He thought, I am the creator of the world. I am eternal. There is nothing and nobody who would be better than me. Now this story may perhaps decrease your faith and expectations, but it's in the scriptures, so let's look at it more, as an observer, when we observe something, let's remove your expectations and faiths and whatever. Let's accept the teachings, the original scriptures as they are, and then do as much as you want, select whatever is the best for you. So I'm showing you now something that might not be particularly appreciated if you already have some expectations. So the God creator has the thought, I am the best. I am the creator. There is nobody better than me. I am eternal. There is nobody better. There is nobody higher. There is nobody more powerful than me. And at that moment, the Buddha, by his psychic powers, knows the thought of the God creator. And as he knows that, the thought occurs in his mind that maybe he can show the God that this is not exactly correct. So the Buddha disappears with his body, so no astral traveling or that kind of thing. He disappears, including his physical body, from the human world, appears in the world of the God creator, which is like part of this world system, and he appears above the God. So the God is like sitting and the Buddha appears above him. In Buddhism, all gods have body. Apart from special gods who don't have body, but they would not have speech or action, they would not have any impact as well, because all speech, action, impact is dependent on body. So the Buddhist gods, all of them who would speak or act or have any impact or anybody in any way, all of those gods have physical body, and that has its borders. It's a body. So the Buddha appeared above the body of the God. His name is Baka Brahma. And as the Buddha appeared there, the God says, "Oh, welcome. Nice to see you. How do you do?" Because the Buddhist gods are perfected in loving kindness, compassion, mutual joy, and equanimity. So no Buddhist god, whether he believes that he's eternal or creator, or whether he thinks that he's useless, that he's bad, no god ever, if they are Brahma, in the Brahma world, that's a special world for the high Brahmas, will ever be angry with anybody or anything. It just doesn't exist. They will never cause harm to any living being, even if it costs their own life, their own existence. The God creators in Buddhist philosophy are the best, the most loving, the most compassionate, the most sharing, appreciating, altruistic, and the most equanimous. So that's something I do not see in the other religions, and I made essays on 11 religions when I studied religious studies at a Buddhist and Pali University of Sri Lanka. And I do not see this kind of concept in other religions. I see it only in Buddhism. Even in Hinduism, the Brahmas, okay, the Hindu Brahma can be pretty developed, but many of the gods in Hinduism still can have quite a lot of anger, and not just to shout at you, but also to kill you. So the Buddhist gods are very special in this term. The Buddhist Brahmas. There are gods and Brahmas, they're a little bit different, but we can say that all of them are a kind of gods because they're above human. So the Buddha appeared above Baka, and Baka Brahma was welcoming, he was kind. You know, there was no anger. Like, what are you doing here, you human, you mortal, you useless nothing? No, not at all. Baka Brahma was very happy to see the ascetic Gautama, and he was welcoming and friendly. And the ascetic Gautama, the Buddha, he told the God that this idea that the Baka Brahma is eternal, that he doesn't have any time of death, that he is the best, the most powerful, that this is a wrong view, that he should relinquish that view. And after that, because he was not ready to accept it, the God was not ready to accept it, they agreed upon a competition. The competition of disappearing. So they agreed that they will compete in disappearing. Okay, so one of us will disappear, and if the other person will still see the one who has disappeared, then the one who has disappeared, because he's still seen, he has lost. He's not that powerful. But if one of us disappears and he's not seen anymore, then he has won, because he's more powerful than the other one. Very hard to believe, right? Very hard to believe. And so the Baka Brahma has disappeared, but the Baka Brahma, although he has disappeared, you know, he has like made his form, his visible form, to become invisible. He saw that he is not invisible. Not only that others saw him, but he also saw himself that he is not invisible, although he applied the power of his mind. He applied the power of his mind to disappear as he would any time, but it just didn't work. Then the Buddha, it was the Buddha's turn, so the Buddha disappeared, and of course the Brahma and nobody around could see the Buddha. And the Buddha, as he has disappeared, he spoke out. So they couldn't see the Buddha, but they could hear him, you know. And the Buddha has clearly explained that indeed there is nothing permanent in the world. And that the Baka Brahma is also not eternal, and that he should not have those thoughts. So I don't remember whether Baka Brahma then like apologized or anything. You know, official apology in Facebook. I apologize for my idea. No. But then the Buddha disappeared, and Baka Brahma apparently didn't have that idea again. So this is the Buddhist belief regarding the God creator. Whether this happened during the Buddha or not, this is in our most original scriptures. No scholar ever categorizes this particular teaching as anything later than the Buddha's time. So we have, in the Burmese edition, you would have 40 books. If you, in the Burmese edition of the Pali texts of our ancient scriptures, it's coming out as 40 books. And out of the 40 books, some of the books would be believed by scholars to come later, let's say in the 1st century or in the 5th century, whatever they want. But some scriptures are believed to be the most ancient, the most ancient scriptures. And this particular case is believed to be the most historical teaching in the scriptures. So then that means that this forms the core of the Theravada Buddhism. So in Theravada Buddhism, we believe that there may be a God who believes that he is a creator, but we don't believe that he would be true. The Buddha also has several times mentioned that he himself in his past lives was a God like that. So he remembers how he was born, how he lived for a long, long time, almost eternity, and then passed away. So the Buddha is not just speaking out of some hypotheses that maybe because this God has consciousness and consciousness is based on I and form and that kind of thing. No, the Buddha is not just speaking from hypotheses. He's speaking out of his own experience. He himself has been a God who believes he's a creator, and he himself experienced death and was born in a different world. So this is the main teachings of gods in Buddhism. So all gods are born based on their previous good deeds in their previous lives, and their lifespan is dependent on several factors. One is their good karma, but there is another factor, and that is anger. In some of the deity realms, anger can kill you. It can kill even a human being, but that's extremely rare, and you might have never heard of it. But in God realms, in the deity realms, this is what can happen. This is part of their life and death. So in the higher God realm, not the Brahma world anymore, in the God realm there still can be anger. They will not kill anybody, but there still can be anger. And when they are angry, if it is the highest, there are 6 deity realms, and the highest, the so-called Parinimitta Vasavatti, that means that's the realm where they enjoy creations of others, and those creations are coming from the lower deity realm, that's the Nimmanarati, when they enjoy their own creations. So in the Parinimitta Vasavatti, the gods have extremely subtle bodies. Gradually with the God realm, as it goes higher and higher, the body is more and more subtle. And in the Parinimitta Vasavatti, their body is extremely subtle, but they still can become angry. And the reality is that if one God gets angry with another God, but the other God is not angry, he just doesn't care, then this is still fine. So the anger of the angry God will gradually pass away and everybody's okay. But if one God is angry and the other God who has to receive the anger is also angry, then their anger is accumulating. It's accumulating, increasing, and it's more and more and more, and it literally burns their bodies to death. So they die and they are born in a different world. So it's quite dangerous to be angry, you know, when you're God. So this is how the Buddha teaches on gods and on religions. If you would like to know more details, there would be 2 suttas that you may particularly appreciate that are directly related to this topic. Number 1 is the first sutta of all of our scriptures, the very first discourse. It's known as Brahma Jala Sutta. But if you search the first sutta of Buddhists, first sutta, how to say that? Yeah, that's not easy to say, but you would have to search it as Brahmajala Sutta, or I think it's also known as the net of views. That's the translation, I think something like that. And if you search that, if you Google that, you will get the sutta, and there are all of the beliefs. They are, I think, 62 kinds of philosophies and beliefs and faiths in the Buddha's time. And it is believed that any belief fits into this net. So it's a net of wrong views. So all of these wrong views fit into that net. So they're like caught by the Buddha, as that they do not lead to the freedom from greed, hatred, ignorance. So you can search that as the net of views, Brahmajala Sutta, and you can also search the Aggañña Sutta. I don't remember what's the translation. Aggañña Sutta is in the same book, and that also explains on gods, but not on different beliefs. It explains on how the Buddha suggests that humans evolve, actually de-evolved. So you may have heard of creationist theory, which we know especially from Christians, Muslims, Jews. You may have heard of evolution theory, started by Darwin. And then there is de-evolution theory, which is not so famous because Buddhism is not so famous. De-evolution theory is very specific to Buddhism, and it starts with the idea that there are just gods. There are no humans, no animals, no lower gods. There are just the Brahmas who are perfect in their loving kindness, compassion, altruistic joy, and equanimity. So the only thing that appears in the beginning of the world is the God creator who created the world by his good actions in his past life. So he dies from a higher realm, then he is born in the lower realm, but still it's a Brahma world. There are 8 Brahma worlds. He's born in a new Brahma realm, which appears at the time of his birth as a result of his good actions in the previous life, in a previous life. And he lives there alone for long, long time, immensely long time. So long time that he forgets the beginning. So that's where he starts to believe that he's eternal, that he has no birth. And then when long time passes, the Brahma, the God Brahma, has the thought, I'm here alone. What if there is anybody else? Anybody like me? And at that moment, another Brahma from a higher Brahma realm dies, and he is born in this Brahma realm. Exactly at that moment. But he also doesn't remember his past life. So the first Brahma doesn't remember his past life. The second Brahma also doesn't remember their past life. It's a lot of coincidence together. And the second Brahma thinks, okay, so I don't remember anything before this life. And when I came here, this one was here. So certainly he created me. And the first Brahma also thinks that, because he thought, hey, what if there is another Brahma like me? And immediately another Brahma appeared. So then he thinks more like that. What if there are another Brahmas like that? So then immediately Brahmas from the high realm, they pass away and they are born next to this Brahma. So then he thinks, okay, so I have created them. I'm really the creator of this world and of the beings here. And that's where the Brahmas worship and they pay respect to the first Brahma as the creator Brahma. So the first Brahma believes he's creator, and the other Brahmas also believe that the first Brahma is the creator. So from the very beginning, everybody believes that he is the creator. And then after a long, long time, there appears sun and moon and earth. Brahmas do not need earth. Brahmas are so subtle that earth would be too rough, too coarse for them. But at that moment, when earth appears, Brahmas get the idea, what if we eat this? Somehow it occurs in the thought of some of the Brahmas. So they taste the earth, and at that time the earth is so delicious that some of the Brahmas really appreciate it. That's where greed appears in their minds. Greed is coarse. It's not compatible with their subtle body. Brahmas feed on their joy of meditation. So they never need to eat anything. And then some of the Brahmas, however, succumb to their desires and they continue to eat the earth, which makes their bodies coarser and coarser, and that way gradually the lower and lower realms of gods appear. All the way until the humans appear. Through the gradual increase of greed, hatred, and delusion. Because they get greedy for the sweet earth, their body gets coarse, therefore they are no more eligible for that sweet earth. So the earth becomes a little bit coarser. So then they continue to eat the coarser earth, so their bodies are even coarser. Then the earth is not so much palatable, but it starts to give fruit, it starts to give rice. So they start to eat rice, which is not husked, it's just rice. Perfect, fantastic, beautiful, delicious rice. So they eat that delicious rice. Because of their greed, their bodies get even more coarse, and the rice gradually get even coarser. Then, because it's a little bit more difficult to get the rice than it was before, because now it's husked, so they need to work on that, there appears the, how to say that, that they want to have more and more, you know? That they want to keep for themselves, selfishness, you know? And so they start to keep the food for next day. They start to store. So they make their stores, then they make more stores, then they worry that somebody else would take something from their stores, so they start to lock it. They're afraid of it. And then that's where some others start to steal. They start to break the locks. And then they decide to have a king and appoint the king to kill those who break the laws, those who steal, you know. Then the king hears that the robber told the king that he doesn't steal, but he stole. So that's a lie. So the lie appears in the world. Then the king finds out that it was a lie. So he kills the person. So that's where killing appears in the world. And it goes worse and worse and worse. So that's the de-evolution theory in Buddhism. So now you have another thing to debate, you know. So if somebody asks you, so are you a creationist or evolutionist? So you can say, well, maybe I'm a de-evolutionist. For me, I don't know. You know, like for evolution, there are so many proofs that it's pretty much impossible to reject that idea. But in Buddhism, there are psychic powers, and sometimes you don't even need psychic powers to know spiritual beings, such as ghosts and deities. And even though you might have never experienced them and you think it's absolutely nonsense, there are people who have experienced them so much that you could perhaps not even imagine. For example, a monk has committed suicide in a monastery because he did something wrong, and then he was born there as a ghost, and he was, you know, disturbing the monks so much that there was just no way to do anything else than just to come there, gather, and chant the Buddha's teachings. And then upon that, the ghost disappeared. And this is not just with monks, of course, with people it's much more common. So there are many cases like that. There are cases when a doctor visited a famous meditation master, Actually, he's not a meditation master, but a great master who's believed to be fully enlightened, and he happened to delay himself until late at night. And then as he was late in the room, he thought, okay, Sayadaw, okay, master, I'm leaving. You know, late at night, maybe 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, maybe 12 o'clock, I don't remember. And he was leaving, he opened the door of the room and he saw incredible light. Such a strong light that it was light during the day. But it was midnight. It was late at night. And then when he looked in the light, a little bit carefully, he could see face and body shining that incredibly powerful light at him. That's where he learned that the master is giving his Dhamma teachings at night to the deities. But don't believe that, there's a better story. A monk, he's still alive, this one is also still alive, so you can go and ask him. A monk who is also still alive, and I went and asked him, he was on a shore, on a bank, on a river bank, and there was a ferry. There was somebody, you know, on a boat to take people across. And other people took the ferry, and this monk didn't have money for the ferry, and he doesn't use money, so he follows the rules very strictly. And the ferryman says, I cannot take you, sorry, you don't have money, goodbye. So the ferryman went off. And the monk, as he was there, suddenly, that's what the people said, suddenly he starts to walk over the water. So people around, lay people, normal, ordinary people are around, the ferryman, the people on the boat, the people on the bank, the people on the other bank, anybody you can imagine, they are there around and they see how the monk is slowly walking over the bank, and he goes, you know, on the surface of the water, and he, you know, makes his way through the water over the surface to the other bank. You can't say that this was prepared because he asked the ferryman didn't want to receive him. And there nobody ever knew that this monk is special, and the monk didn't have any reason to become special. But he did that, people saw it, and immediately they made their conclusion, this was his psychic power. Immediately people thought, he is fully enlightened, he has psychic power, he was walking over water, I saw it by my eyes, and the other people also saw it. All of us saw it so clearly. And do not try to wish for a video, you would not believe it. Then I came to see that Sayadaw to ask him about that. And I said, Venerable Sir, people say that you are walking over water. What did you do? How did you do that? And the Sayadaw said, and there were people around us, and it's on a video. This is on a video, that discussion is on a video. And people were around, and I was asking the Sayadaw answered to me, these are very rare pieces of information. I learned all of this in Burmese. The discussions were all in Burmese. I read everything that I read, and I tell you all that is coming only in Burmese. There's nothing of this in English yet. And so I asked the Sayadaw, how did you do that? How did you walk over the water? People saw you, people believe that you are fully enlightened. What should I think about that? How did you do that? Explain it to me. And the Sayadaw said, you know, that's what the people think. The people think that this was my psychic power. The people think that I did it. The people think that I am fully enlightened. But that's not true. Gods came, they grabbed me, and they carried me over the water. Huh. So what do you want to believe, right? Psychic power or gods carrying a monk? Okay. And then he explained to me, because I really wanted to know more, he explained to me about his encounters with gods, because he also teaches Buddha's teachings to gods. So gods, when he was in the forest, when he was meditating intensively, maybe until now, but he was talking about his forest time, gods would come to him and they would plead him for teaching. They would ask him, please teach us the Buddha's teachings. So then he would teach to them. You could say that was a hallucination, but it's very improbable that as the monk was crossing the river, that's all of the people around were hallucinating at the same time in the same way. So the master explained to me that sometimes gods really disturb him. He didn't ask the gods, to carry him over the river. They just came and they grabbed him. Sometimes the gods really disturb him, he says. One time, he was having Dhamma teachings at a certain place. He was teaching lay people at a certain place. And at a different place, there were another people, and it seemed that the Sayadaw is at that place. So people gathered for Dhamma teachings. And somebody out of the crowd, they took a phone and they called, I suppose, as an assistant of the Sayadaw. And they asked, Sayadaw, where is the Sayadaw? Is the Sayadaw here? But he had to teach there, like in a different village. And then the Sayadaw was there in the different village, and he was in this village as well. And the Sayadaw in that different village, he says, but I didn't do anything. I'm just here. I didn't do anything. There's no psychic power. I didn't try for anything. I'm just here and teaching you. And what's happening there, his explanation, a god is imitating him to make him, a duplicate and to teach the other people in the way he is teaching, to increase his fame and people's respect. So there again would be a crowd of people hallucinating the same thing at the same time, which I think is not very probable. But maybe you could say it's not more probable than a monk would be at the same place, at two places, at the same time. So this is how the psychic powers happen and how the gods are there in Buddhism. So some monks teach gods, and I believe that there are too many pieces, too many experiences of too many people to say that there are no gods, that there are no ghosts, and that this is absolutely nonsense. But I am sure there will be still many people who will disagree on this. So this is the devolution and evolution problem. So in the evolution theory, there is the problem that there is no space for gods or for ghosts, because then how would there be natural selection, for ghosts or for gods? And that's a nonsense. How would there be the competition? What's that called? Do you know? Competition? Survival. Yes, that's right. Survival of fittest. Thank you. Survival of the fittest. How do you get survival of the fittest theory for ghosts or for gods? No, not very easy. So that's where, for me, evolution is not compatible with the experiences of people where they experienced ghosts and gods. On the other hand, evolution theory is so well proved, and I spent so many, I believe, hundreds of hours studying on evolution and all of their proofs and ideas and suggestions and discoveries, that I don't find a way how to disagree. So the only way how to deal with this huge discrepancy is to put it aside and enjoy my meditation.